Hello. Okay, so I want us to continue through John chapter 1. And so far we've gotten through the first 13 verses, but today I want to kind of stop there again and go back and review a couple things and say a couple things that I didn't get to say about these first 13 verses. And what's interesting here is I see there are, so far in just 13 verses, we see 3 names or titles that Jesus is given. And so I want to take a look at these and see what all they might mean for us. He's called the Word, the Life, and the Light. And so what does it mean that he is called these different things for us? He's called the Word. In the first verse, it says, "In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God." So if I want to communicate to you, I can draw a picture for you, I can make gestures, I can use body language, or better yet, I can use words, because words are good. God wanted to speak to man, so he sent his son Jesus as his word, his living word. So Jesus is what God had to say to us. His life, his spoken words, his death, his resurrection, all these things speak volumes to us. Like, for example, you see him healing the sick. So what is God saying there when he's healing the sick? He's saying, I care for you. I have compassion towards you. I want good things for you. I want you to be healthy. You see him there on the cross. You can hear what God is saying in that. He's saying, I hate sin. I truly despise sin. Sin's a very serious issue to me, and it has to be dealt with. And sin must be punished. But then he's also saying on the cross, I love you, so my son will die in your place. It's the most amazing expression of love in all of history. You see him risen again, and there God is saying, now you're justified, now you're forgiven, now you're finally able to at last become my children. You see Jesus ascending and being welcomed into heaven as a man seated beside the Father. This is saying to us that we too have a place in heaven. And Jesus even told us that he goes there to prepare a place for us in his Father's house. He is the Word. He is what God is speaking to us. He is the Word from God to men. Now God sees our broken, sinful condition, and he says to us, Jesus, right? We see our own desperate circumstances, and we speak to the Father, and we say, Jesus. He's, in a sense, he's what we say back to God, right? Because he's our covering. He's what covers us. We're covered by his blood, and so he is our communication back and forth between ourselves and the Father. He truly is the Word. And so that's beautiful. And he's also called the Life, right? In John 1, 4 and 5, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it or understand it. And he is a life, and this is important because we human beings, we're born spiritually dead because of Adam's sin. When God said to Adam, in the day you eat this fruit, you're going to surely die, Adam did die that very day. And this is the key word that is meant by death in the scriptures, right? It's not that the body immediately died. The body did die eventually. It's not even the soul that died, but it was the spirit that died. And this is significant because God is spirit. And it is through our spirit that we make our connection with God. This is actually how we connect with him, is through the spirit. Our emotions, of course, connect with him too, through our soul, but it's the spirit that brings life. So Adam died in a very real sense that day, and so did we. Did Adam cease to exist? No, and neither will you, ever. Even if you do choose Jesus, you'll always exist. But he ceased to live, and that's a very different thing, right? To exist is not to live. There's a difference between the two. The death that Adam died was a death of his spirit. And that's a death that every person is born already dead in our spirit. The word says, he that believes not shall not see life, but the wrath of God abides in him. So if we're never going to see life if we don't believe, that means we're not going to be born again. We're not going to receive that life in our spirit again. You may have existence, and you always will have existence, but you don't have the life. The Bible even says that the people who aren't born again abide in death. But as for the one who believes in Jesus Christ, he is given a new spirit, which is described in Ezekiel 36. So he's given this new life. Ezekiel 36, verses 25 to 27 says this, Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean. I will cleanse you from all your filthiness and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. So he's going to make this amazing transformation in us. He's going to put this life into us, which is a new spirit, a new heart, and it's going to change us. It's going to make us able to obey him. And Jesus said, he that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And he that lives and believes in me shall never die. I am the resurrection and the life. So he even says, I am the life. So when we're born again, we're given this new heart. The old heart is removed, and this new soft-hearted flesh is put into us. And he also says that he puts his spirit within us. An existence without God is like maybe a beautiful palace which has been deserted. It's empty. You can walk through the hallways and there's not a sound, no life, nothing there. It's all death, decay, and emptiness. But when the king comes back to his palace, there's rejoicing, there's music, there's dancing, there's activity all through the halls and a lot of noise. So it's like that for us. When the Lord comes back into our lives, where he has been chased out, then there's a new life, and the house is full of good things. So, and the third thing he's called is the light. I see this in John 1, verses 6 through 9. It says, there was a man sent from God whose name was John. Now this man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world. So Jesus here is called a light, the true light, which gives light to every man. Notice how many times that word light is repeated here, like 4 or 5 times. So what is it to have Jesus Christ to be your light? What is light? It's that by which we can see. Everybody sees in a light. Light is just what you see with. Light is what enables you to even notice the things that exist around you. With light, you can discern whether it's safe to cross a street or if a truck is coming really fast. If there's no light, you can't see to navigate through life at all. You could only wander randomly, not even discerning where you're going. Having light is essential if you want to know how to go about life. With light, you can see where you are. You can see who is there with you. Maybe you're surrounded by friends. You don't even know it without the light. Or maybe there's a lion a few feet away from you who's going to attack you and you don't know it without the light. So light is awesome. I say, let there be light. Without the light, which is Jesus Christ, we're blind, helpless, stumbling over everything and falling down all day long. So the ones who did receive him and who did believe in his name, they received the power and the right to become children of God. So he's the Word, he's the life, and he's the light. And the last part, I just want to mention this idea about becoming children of God, about being born again. He says they became children of God by a new birth. But it's interesting because he first says, here's what it says, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. I think it's interesting, if you believe that the Bible is God-breathed, that God's spoken, like it says about itself, then you have to believe that everything in it is purposeful and has important meaning for us. For example, here, the Lord thought it important to tell us about 3 ways in which man is not born the second time, before telling us how he's born again. So you're born again, not this way or this way or this way, but this way. So for some reason, he wants us to know these 3 ways we're not born again. Something significant in there. So we're not born of blood. He says that, right? Our first birth is a birth of blood, but our second birth is not. Throughout history, birth has been kind of a bloody thing. It's difficult. Babies are born kind of all bloody. But I think what he means here is it's not involving the flesh. We're not born by the will of the flesh. The flesh is that worldly part of us, the carnal part, the part that clings to the things of man instead of the things of God. The will of the flesh would never choose God. It can't. in the second birth, we're not born of the will of the flesh. It also says we're not born of the will of man. And this will of man, this is the part of man that determines things, that decides things, that takes action and builds things. We're not born by this will of man that accomplishes what men can accomplish. Men love to exert their will on their surroundings. For example, a man may desire to build a building. He envisions it, he sees it, he plans it, he takes things from the environment to use. He determines to do it. He works and he builds, and in the end, there's something there which was not there before. His will made it happen. But in the second birth, it doesn't happen like this. Man's will is not involved at all. Man's will, his strength, his ability, his cleverness, none of what man has is involved in the new birth. And none of it has anything to do with what happens when you're born again as a child of God. And so, sorry, men and women, there is no glory for us in the process of being born again. It's all him and none of us. Which is good, because none of us could have done this, no matter how strong-willed we are. It's a task that's completely beyond our capacity. So, not born of the will of, not born of blood, not born of the will of man, not born of the will of the flesh or the will of man, only by the will of God. And there's something really touching here about that, because even though it was not our will to bring about this renewed connection with God, even though it was not by the will of man that the father-son relationship, the father-daughter relationship was restored for us with him, it was his will completely and not ours. And it came about because he wanted it to. This is encouraging to me. This is exciting, because he wanted you and me as his sons and daughters. Do you see the tremendous joy in that for us? If it's all his doing, and it is, that makes us truly desired and truly loved. Amen?
Amen.